My name is Garrick, and in 2013, I was contracted by my best friend's startup to manage a section of 5 large infrastructure project tenders. I was told the client could be difficult, a perfectionist who demanded precision. Early on, I made a big mistake and had to eat a humble pie the size of a dinner plate. But I learned fast, found my rhythm, and ended up producing some of the best work of my career. When the results came in, the client had won 4 of the 5 tenders. Hundreds of millions of dollars, partly because of my work. My friend's company suddenly had market clout and could command premium prices. I stayed on in an ad hoc capacity while we worked out my next contract. They wanted me for another 2 years, and I was on board. We just needed to finalize details. Before I tell you what happened next, hit like, comment, share, and subscribe for more true life stories. Drop your name and city below for a chance at a shout out in my next video. Shout out to Daniel in Perth, Australia. Your story about being blindsided by a business partner was unforgettable. The following year, they landed their biggest client yet. I built new models for them, working right up to my August 2014 wedding. I delivered everything early, with clear instructions for their staff to handle any last-minute changes. 2 weeks before my wedding, my friend called me in for a talk. He was vague, distracted. All I took from it was that changes were coming to my role, but we'd sort it out after my honeymoon. I had no idea that conversation was my first warning shot. The wedding was beautiful, small, intimate, and perfect. My wife and I left for our honeymoon with nothing but excitement ahead of us. I'd waited a long time to marry for personal reasons, and now we were finally starting our life together. After 2 incredible weeks, we packed the car and began the long drive home. Somewhere between the coast and our front door, my phone buzzed. An email from one of the company founders, the one who had recently taken over as CEO. I opened it and felt my chest tighten. They were changing their business model, he wrote. My role was being canceled, effective immediately. No phone call, no meeting, just an email. I gripped the steering wheel as my wife read it again, her voice breaking. She turned away, trying to hide her tears. We had spent most of our savings on the wedding and honeymoon. She was still studying for her CFA, unemployed. And now I was too. What made it worse was knowing I had helped build that company, the systems, the models, the very foundation they used daily. And this was how they repaid me. The reasons they gave were smoke and mirrors. They claimed my skills were no longer needed, yet kept doing the same work the following year. I quickly realized the truth. The new CEO's salary had to come from somewhere, and that somewhere was me. My best friend never called, never fought for me, never warned me. He let someone else swing the axe, right when I was most vulnerable. The drive home felt endless. My wife cried quietly beside me. I swallowed my own tears, and in that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. As I drove, watching my wife wipe away tears, I felt something harden inside me. I could break down or I could build something. I chose to build. That night, sitting at our kitchen table, I told her, we're starting our own company. She didn't flinch. She didn't tell me it was crazy. She just nodded and said, all right, let's do it. We had less than $500 to our name. But we registered Artifacts Knowledge Engineering and started mapping out what we could offer. Because of a restraint of trade clause, I couldn't go after certain types of clients right away, so we had to be patient. By February 2015, our patience paid off. I landed our first big client. We had just enough cash to cover 1 month's rent, but we made it work. We could finally breathe. Then came round 2. My first client asked me to develop an automated tender system for their internal use. The system was revolutionary, reducing the tender process from weeks to minutes, allowing one person to manage more than 10 projects at a time. Not long after, I started receiving emails from my ex-friend's company. They accused me of stealing intellectual property and breaching my restraint of trade. They had no proof, no examples, no contract showing a breach. But they had deep pockets, and they used them, dragging me into a costly back and forth with lawyers designed to drain my resources. I saw their strategy clearly, not to win in court, but to bleed me dry. The man I had once called my best friend was now hiding behind lawyers, coming after me a second time. Not because I'd wronged him, but because I'd built something that threatened his business. The accusations were absurd, but absurdity doesn't make them harmless. They weren't after truth. They were after time, money, and energy. They knew I was a new business owner, and every hour I spent fighting them was an hour I couldn't spend on my clients. Their lawyers sent letter after letter, each one vague enough to be useless, but serious enough to demand a response. I had to pay my own lawyers to answer every claim, no matter how ridiculous. It wasn't about justice. It was about pressure. While this dragged on, people from the industry reached out to me privately. They told me stories about my ex-friend's company, how unethical they'd become, how arrogant they acted, how they burned other bridges in the name of profit. The very behaviors they accused me of were the ones they themselves had perfected. And through all this, my ex-friend never called me directly. He hid behind his company's letterhead, letting the lawyers do his dirty work. I realized this was who he really was. A man who avoided responsibility but loved control, who could smile to your face while planning your downfall in the background. They never proved I'd stolen anything because there was nothing to steal. My system was my own work, built from scratch. What they really feared was that I had created something that could replace their expensive consultants, and that meant their revenue. It was cowardly. It was calculated. And it was my final confirmation that whatever friendship we'd once had died long before I walked out their door. We survived that year. My wife, my greatest ally, dried her tears, rolled up her sleeves, and built with me. We kept a roof over our heads, food in our cupboards, and heat in the house. Even when cash was tight, we never lost sight of the fact that we were building something for ourselves, not for someone else to take away. I learned hard truths. When someone's first love is money, don't expect loyalty to you to come first. Never start a major business arrangement without a signed contract, especially with friends. And above all, no matter what happens, you can start over. Years passed. Then, in 2019, my phone rang. It was him. He wished me a happy birthday. He did it again in 2020. Then, earlier this year, he called sounding nervous. I braced for an apology. Instead, he said, "Garrick, all I want to say is that I should have done things differently. In 2014, I should have done things differently. That was it. No sorry. No, I regret what I did." Just enough to clear his conscience before whatever new venture he had lined up. He never mentioned the legal attack of 2015. I forgave him for my own peace, but I knew this wasn't an apology. It was another act of self-preservation. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, hit like, comment, share, and subscribe for more true life stories. Drop your name and city in the comments for a chance to be featured in my next video. Don't let people like that back into your life. You deserve sincerity, not self-serving words. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt.